If you're hoping for a cheerful story, stop reading now. This is not a tale to warm your heart or make you smile. Instead, it is a journey into the shadows, where hope flickers like a candle about to go out. This is not a tale of sunny days or friendly kittens. There are no gentle breezes or laughter echoing through bright rooms. Here, the air is thick with secrets, and every corner hides something you'd rather not see. It's the story of a puppet who learned the world is cruel. Shadows and sharp corners, real and metaphorical, wait at every turn. The world outside is not a playground, but a maze of dangers, where innocence is a weakness and trust is a risk. Pinocchio's journey is not about magic and wonder, but betrayal and fear. Every step he takes is haunted by the threat of loss, and every promise he hears is edged with lies. The magic here is not the kind that grants wishes, but the kind that tricks and traps. You may know a happier version, but the truth is much darker. The world Pinocchio entered was cold, dangerous, and unkind. It was a place where even the kindest faces could hide cruel intentions, and where every open door might lead to disaster. Every person he met had secrets. Every path was a trap. The streets were filled with whispers and warnings, and the forest paths twisted into confusion. No one could be trusted, and every choice carried a price. This is a story about the terrifying cost of becoming real. Innocence is fragile, easily shattered by harsh reality. The journey from wood to flesh is not a miracle, but a trial by fire, where every mistake leaves a scar. If you continue, know that this story will chill you. It's about the darkness beneath the surface of things. Even the brightest moments are tinged with dread, and every glimmer of hope is threatened by the shadows lurking just out of sight. If you're brave enough to go on, don't say I didn't warn you. The story of Pinocchio is sad and unsettling. It will test your courage, and perhaps make you question what it truly means to be alive. It begins, as many sad stories do, with a lonely man and a piece of wood. In the silence of his workshop, dreams are carved from sorrow, and hope is as fragile as the shavings on the floor. Turn the page if you dare. But remember, once you begin, you cannot look away from the darkness that follows. This is your final warning. In a forgotten town, where the streets echoed with memories and the wind carried only the sound of ticking clocks, Geppetto, a lonely woodcarver, spent his days and nights in a silent workshop. The walls were lined with old clocks, their pendulums swinging in endless hollow rhythm, and shelves crowded with wooden toys that had never known a child's laughter. Each tick and tock was a reminder of the emptiness that filled his life, and every toy he carved was a silent wish for companionship. One stormy evening, as rain tapped against the dusty windows, Geppetto stumbled upon a strange piece of wood. It was unlike any he had ever seen, gnarled, twisted, and pulsing with a faint, sinister energy that seemed to whisper secrets in the dark. The wood felt almost alive, as if it had a story of its own, waiting to be told. Driven by a deep, aching loneliness, Geppetto began to carve the wood, pouring all his longing and hope into every stroke. He dreamed of a son, someone to fill the silence and bring warmth to his cold, empty home. The hours slipped by as he worked, the world outside fading away. But as his chisel bit into the wood, it squirmed beneath his hands, twisting and laughing with a hollow, unsettling sound. The puppet's face seemed to grin before it was even finished, and the shavings fell like whispers onto the floor. Geppetto's heart pounded with unease, but he could not stop. His longing for family clouded his judgment, blinding him to the warning signs that flickered in the candlelight. He pressed on, desperate to complete his creation, even as a chill crept up his spine. At last he finished the puppet and with trembling hands named him Pinocchio. The puppet's features were eerily lifelike, its eyes glinting with a strange, restless light. To Geppetto's astonishment, the puppet stood up on its own, but there was no innocence in its gaze, only wildness, a fierce and untamed spirit that seemed to hunger for something more. From the very start, Pinocchio was mischievous, darting around the workshop and knocking over tools and toys. The once orderly room became a scene of chaos, as if a storm had swept through, leaving confusion and unease in its wake. Yet Geppetto, blinded by hope and love, saw only the son he had always wished for. He missed the danger lurking in Pinocchio's unsettling demeanor, ignoring the shadows that seemed to gather behind his creation. In his desperation to guide Pinocchio toward goodness, Geppetto sold his only coat, the last comfort he owned, to buy a schoolbook for his puppet. He clung to the hope that education would tame the wildness within Pinocchio, that love and sacrifice could shape him into something good. With a heavy heart, Geppetto sent Pinocchio out into the world, believing it was the right thing to do. But this was his first and greatest mistake, for the world outside was far more dangerous than he could ever imagine. The world was a dark, tangled forest, filled with lurking wolves and hidden dangers. Pinocchio, naive and unprepared, wandered alone down shadowy paths, his wooden heart beating with curiosity and fear. As Pinocchio stepped into the unknown, a cold wind swept through the workshop, snuffing out Geppetto's candle. The sudden darkness was a chilling omen, a silent warning that something terrible had been set in motion. The darkness crept in, swallowing the warmth and light of the workshop. It was only the beginning, a shadow that would stretch far beyond Geppetto's lonely home. Geppetto's wish, born of love and loneliness, had unleashed something wild and untamed into the world. The puppet's hand twitched on the workbench, as if restless for mischief, and Geppetto's heart filled with dread. The world was not ready for Pinocchio, nor was Pinocchio ready for the world. Both stood on the edge of something vast and unknown, their fates forever changed by a single wish. The true danger of the story had only just begun to reveal itself, lurking in the shadows and gathering like storm clouds over the silent town. And so the workshop was left in chilling silence, haunted by the echo of Geppetto's wish and the darkness that now walked the world in wooden shoes. Pinocchio never made it to school. The path that should have led him to learning and safety instead twisted away into the unknown, swallowed by the shadows of a world he did not yet understand. The night was thick with fog, and every step he took away from the schoolhouse was a step further from innocence. The lure of a marionette theater with its bright lights and music was too strong for a curious heart like Pinocchio's. The dazzling glow promised excitement, adventure, and a place to belong, something he had always longed for. The music drifted through the air, sweet and intoxicating, calling him closer with every note. In a moment of temptation, he sold his precious schoolbook for a ticket to the show, betraying Geppetto's sacrifice and the hope that had been placed in him. The book, a symbol of his father's love and dreams for his future, was traded away for a fleeting thrill. Pinocchio's heart ached with guilt, but the excitement of the unknown drowned out his doubts. Inside the theater, the other puppets greeted him as a brother. For a brief, shining moment, Pinocchio felt accepted, surrounded by laughter and applause. He danced and played, swept up in the magic of the stage. But the warmth of belonging was short-lived, as the master of the theater, Mangiafuoco, emerged from the shadows. Mangiafuoco, a terrifying and unpredictable figure, threatened to burn Pinocchio for firewood. The threat was real, and for the first time Pinocchio felt the icy grip of true fear. He pleaded for his life, his wooden heart pounding with terror, realizing how quickly joy could turn to danger in this strange new world. Yet, in a twist of fate, Mangiafuoco relented. Instead of punishment, he handed Pinocchio 5 gold coins, instructing him to take them home to Geppetto. Pinocchio's relief was overwhelming. He believed, perhaps naively, that his troubles were over, and that kindness had triumphed over cruelty. But the world had only begun to show its teeth. The coins, glittering in his hand, were not a gift but a curse in disguise. They would soon attract the attention of those who preyed on the innocent and the naive, leading Pinocchio into even greater danger than before. As Pinocchio stepped out into the night, the shadows of the theater seemed to follow him, stretching long and dark across the empty streets. He was alone, clutching the gold that would soon betray him, his heart heavy with uncertainty. The world outside was vast and unforgiving, and every sound in the darkness made him flinch. The world was waiting to pounce, lurking in every alley and behind every corner. Every step forward was a step deeper into peril, and Pinocchio could sense the danger closing in around him. The night seemed alive with threats, and the path ahead was more treacherous than he could have ever imagined. The lesson was harsh and clear. Kindness often hides a trap, and trust can be a dangerous thing. Pinocchio was about to learn this the hard way, as the world revealed just how unforgiving it could be to those who wander from the path. With gold in his pocket, Pinocchio felt important. But the world is full of eyes when there's gold to be had. He met a fox and a cat, swindlers with honeyed words and sharp intentions. They promised to turn his coins into a fortune at the Field of Miracles. Pinocchio, blinded by greed, followed them eagerly. He forgot Geppetto, lost in dreams of gold. The fox's limp and the cat's blindness were just acts. Pinocchio saw only friends, not predators. He followed them down a dark road, deeper into a trap. The air grew colder, the shadows longer. The promise of a miracle was a lie. Pinocchio was walking straight into betrayal. The fox and cat led Pinocchio to an inn, feasting at his expense. They vanished in the night, leaving him alone and uneasy. Ignoring the cricket's warning, Pinocchio pressed on into darkness. 2 masked figures, really the fox and cat, chased him through the woods. He hid his coins in his mouth, but they tried to pry them out with knives. Failing, they tied a noose around his neck and hung him from a tree. "Tomorrow you'll be dead, and your mouth will be open," they hissed. Pinocchio dangled, choking, the world spinning around him. This was the price of his greed. The Field of Miracles had become a tree of death. The world's cruelty was no longer hidden. Pinocchio's innocence was nearly snuffed out. The lesson was brutal and unforgettable. He was left swinging in the cold wind, alone. The darkness had claimed him, almost. Pinocchio was saved by a mysterious blue fairy. She nursed him back to health, but her kindness was unsettling. When he lied about the gold, his nose grew grotesquely long. Woodpeckers pecked it back to size, a painful lesson. The fairy warned him, "Keep lying and disaster will follow." Pinocchio promised to be good, but temptation soon returned. He met Lampwick, who spoke of Pleasure Island, a place with no rules. Pinocchio, forgetting his promises, joined the other boys on the coach. The coachman's smile was cold. The journey was a trap. Pinocchio was trading freedom for fleeting pleasure. He was blind to the cost. The road to Pleasure Island was a road to ruin. The lesson: every escape from pain can lead to a worse fate. Pleasure Island was chaos, games, sweets, and endless fun. For months, Pinocchio and the boys broke every rule. But freedom without consequence soon turned to horror. One morning, Pinocchio found he'd grown donkey ears. Lampwick had them too. Their laughter turned to braying. The transformation was swift and terrifying. Boys became donkeys, rounded up by the cruel coachman. They were sold to circuses and salt mines, worked until they dropped. Pleasure Island was a factory for beasts of burden. Pinocchio, now a donkey, was sold to a circus. Forced to perform, his old life seemed a distant memory. He had wished for a life without rules. Now he lived in a cage. The price of disobedience was slavery. The dream had become a nightmare. There was no escape from the consequences. Pinocchio's punishment had only just begun. In the circus, Pinocchio broke his leg and was sold for his skin. Tied to a rock, he was thrown into the sea to drown. Fish, sent by the blue fairy, stripped away his donkey flesh. He was a puppet again. He swam for freedom, but a monstrous dogfish swallowed him whole. Inside the beast's belly, he found Geppetto, alive but frail. Their reunion was bittersweet, two lost souls in a hopeless prison. Pinocchio had escaped fire, hanging, and slavery, only to end up here. The world had caged him again. Despair hung heavy in the darkness. Yet, even in the belly of the beast, hope flickered. Pinocchio's journey had come full circle. He was back with Geppetto, but at the edge of oblivion. The story seemed destined for a tragic end, but Pinocchio was not ready to give up. Trapped in the monster, Geppetto had lost hope. But Pinocchio, changed by suffering, saw a chance. The dogfish slept with its mouth open, an escape route. Pinocchio carried Geppetto on his back and swam through the monster's jaws. The sea was brutal, but Pinocchio's wooden body endured. They reached shore, exhausted but alive. Pinocchio worked tirelessly to care for Geppetto, forgetting himself. He had learned love and responsibility through pain. One morning he awoke human, flesh and blood. The blue fairy had rewarded his sacrifice, but the memories of his journey lingered. He was real, but forever marked by darkness. The strings of his past would never fully be cut. He was a boy born from nightmare, never to forget the cost. Some stories and some scars never truly fade.